Ladies and gentlemen, two of the most popular streamers on planet Earth just played an epic chess match. And that is what I do on this channel. I cover epic chess matches. I'm recording this in April of 2026, and if you've been following the chess world at all, you know that the most important tournament of the year is happening, which is the Candidates Tournament. Today is April 6th. Today, the Candidates Tournament isn't happening. They have a day of rest. But what is happening is JYNXZI versus XQC. JYNXZI recently got into chess, and he and I have done several collabs, and a lot of you are enjoying them. I think in total, the viewership on these collaborations is over 50 million, which is insane. And a lot of people join the player pool on chess.com and are playing and learning the game. So JYNXZI challenged XQC. Now, XQC has a lot of experience in chess. He has played in the PogChamps tournaments. He's played in ultra elite competition in other video games. And he's like 900 on chess.com. But yet this was a really competitive game. Folks, I gotta tell you, when I first covered JYNXZI on this channel, his rapid rating and his skills were like 100. We did a couple of lessons together. And despite him being extremely busy, streaming dozens of hours of other content, not practicing chess every single day, he's up to like a pretty solid 400 level player already. He has 4x'd his rating. He's up from around 130 level to like 380 approximately. Let's see how he does against the 900. A 900 who admittedly is a little bit out of practice. We can't lie. XQC has not played that much chess recently, and rating on chess.com, it does fluctuate. But here we go. E4 from JYNXZI. Just like we practiced, X responds with E4, E5. Now, as you know, X is the unfortunate victim of a quick checkmate at the hands of Charlie, aka Moist Critical, aka Penguin Zero. Knight F3, Knight C6. Folks, I mean, with these openings, JYNXZI could replace a player in the candidates at this point. All right? Frankly, he and some of them would have the same amount of points. Close. Knight F3, Knight C3, a little bit of a four knights here, but not a four knights, as X plays instead of the fourth knight, he develops the bishop to B4. It's all relatively reasonable. Now, one thing JYNXZI has been doing recently is instead of developing his bishop and preparing castle, for whatever reason, he's playing D3. I mean, listen, beginner habits are a little bit hard to break sometimes. There is nothing inherently wrong with the move D3, but the computer immediately thinks that black is better because your bishop is not going to be active. But at this level, it doesn't really matter. Now, I don't like X's next move. I don't hate it either, but he trades the bishop for the knight. Now, the benefit of this move for black is that you damage your opponent's pawns, doubled pawns. The problem is doubled pawns are only really bad if they can be targeted or if they're isolated. And in this case, it's really neither. I mean, this pawn can't really be targeted, and it can always be defended. And if anything, you help your opponent expand and have more central defense. But now he just plays Knight F6. Now we see the problem with JYNXZI's position, because here, again, with white, you want to get the pieces out and you want to castle your king. That's what you should be doing as a beginner, generally. If you haven't, like, you need a mental checklist. Have I finished my development? No? Then there's not much to think about. Is my opponent threatening me? No. So I'm going to finish my development and then I'm going to, castle. Now JYNXZI's like, well, I have more, I have more stuff in the center, so let's push in the center of the board with pawn to D4. The problem is, X is an experienced player and he immediately notices that that pawn is now unprotected. But first he needs to do something about the rest of his pieces. The risk you run opening the center when your kings are in the middle is that, with a king in the center, there's a lot of pins and skewers, and that's why you really need to develop. So X takes this pawn. Now, at this point, the advanced technique here would be for white. Before you take this pawn back, you get this pawn out of danger by pushing it forward and creating a threat on the knight. And then, and only then, would you take that back. That's an advanced technique. Like, your opponent took a pawn, so very naturally, you're like, oh, I have to take the pawn back. And he does. Not a terrible move, but now black can actually win this pawn. And then the way black would defend against this pin is he has to defend either with the queen or the really fancy move, castles. And that tactically defends the knight, because with a queen and a king like this in the middle, this is why you have to castle. That's why you have to castle. Perfect, reasoning right here. Queen and king like this with no defenders, nothing in the middle, that's the real problem. But X takes the knight, doesn't even play the best move. I mean, these are subtle details. Now here, white should bring out the queen. But obviously, as a new player, you see this, the doubled isolated pawn, and you're like, well, obviously I want to take like this because then my pawns are in the middle. But then you forgot about your center pawn, and X just takes it. So now black is a pawn up. At this point, Probably the most ambitious move for white is something like queen e2 or queen g4. The problem is, queen g4, while it looks like a double attack, the attack on the knight is a ghost attack. You probably already forgot about this because you think it's a new position. I can still just castle. And this is a ghost attack because I have rook e8 with tactical defense. There you go. Now, he plays queen e2. At this point, it's extremely important, the next move for black. Extremely important. If he defends the knight with a pawn, he loses the knight to a pawn. Because you're pinned, and I put PP on the PP. Put pressure on the pinned piece. It looks like maybe black is a check. No, you can actually just block. Normally, black would have this tactic where then he would win the rook, but black's knight is pinned. Don't forget. So queen e2, X plays the 900 level move, which is queen e7. And now I really like JYNXZI's next move. I mean, it's a mistake, but it's kind of understandable. He plays f3. And I mean, black only has one move here to get the advantage, and he doesn't even play it. At this point, black should, probably move the knight back, right? Because it's under threat. But black can create a threat of equal or exceeding nature, danger levels. Always be thinking about that as you progress up the rating ladder. Do I have to move the knight? I said this move was bad, but this move is a problem. Because white doesn't have the same ability to block it with a pawn. This move would cause catastrophic damage. You would even not lose the rook. You would first lose another pawn, and then and only then would you lose your rook. So you've now lost 8 points of material. You would lose this knight, but after the king slides over and the rook comes, yeah, white's position is terrible. Black has much more active material, and white has lost a lot of pieces. So queen b4 is a really nice move, and after this, black can actually just trade and have a position where they have an extra pawn. Extra pawn at this level doesn't mean a damn thing, and X doesn't even do that. And JYNXZI trades, and now just straight up has a better position. How can white have a better position here but be down material? In chess, what matters? Material, king safety, piece activity, and space, pawn, like the structure of your pawns and the future prospects of those pawns. Now, in this position, black's king and white's king are roughly the same, but the quality of these bishops and the quality of these pawns will determine who has an advantage. Why? Because the move bishop d3. If white plays that move right now, you control all the forward movement of that knight. Black also has no ability to put pawns in the middle. And if black tries to run the king to safety, like let's say black plays f6 and tries to put the king on f7, white will play king f2, black might play king f7, but white has a beautiful position. His rooks are going to go to the semi and open lines. You're going to push with this pawn to c5, push the knight back, keep attacking the king, and you do have a lot of things to like about your position. Now in the game, JYNXZI gets a little excited. He plays bishop check. There's nothing really wrong with this move, but you should generally avoid a one-move bishop attack if it can be countered by a pawn. Generally speaking, especially a check. Early on in the game sometimes, people like to do stuff like this. They just like to give a check. This is just bad because, once you're just blocked by a pawn, you have to move the bishop. So you as you get stronger, you will just naturally avoid moves like bishop g5, and instead you will go for moves like bishop a3 or bishop f4 because you know that from far away like this, the bishop pressure is what's important. It's not the immediate dopamine hit of, oh, check. No, it's just bishop's positioning. A bishop controls space, and it applies pressure from a distance. It's a sniper. It's ready to pull the trigger at any moment, should something go wrong on the other side. And that's the way you have to think of a bishop. It will park itself and control squares. You don't always have to deal damage. Okay, we have check here, and now the bishop comes back to a4, and now X plays this, and now JYNXZI long castles. He does a long castle, which is a great move. He's equal. He's equal with a 900 level player, and he's up on time. There's a 300 rated player who a week ago was basically eating the pieces. No disrespect to my man, but I saw him play against Ronaldo, not Cristiano, stable. And then I also watched him play against Queso. I mean, those games were ridiculous. This is miles better. Miles better. G5 now from X hits the bishop. Now, the best move here for white is actually to smash the pawn structure. Again, you don't want to trade a bishop for a knight unless there's a benefit, and here the benefit is ugly-ass pawns in the middle of the board. White has an advantage here because you give a check. This is a very different check. This move develops the bishop and cannot be blocked by a pawn. And then when the king goes here, look at this. Now we infiltrate with the rook. White has a major advantage here because even though white is down a pawn, black's king is much weaker and white's pieces are much better. White's pieces have much greater prospects of infiltration and beating up the pawns. Black's pieces are all in their home squares. We're 17 moves into a chess game and you haven't moved any of these pieces. And you can't move any of the left side pieces, right? You can move the rook back and forth, but so that shows you the advantage. And if king f8, you know, you double your rooks. Play rook up and then rook here and you try to get in. And black could get mated so fast in this position after something like a rook e7, rook f7, and you just bulldoze on the 7th rank. Very instructive stuff. Now, okay, JYNXZI just brings his bishop back. Doesn't really matter, but that's an example of an advantageous bishop for knight trade. X brings his knight into the game. It's a very good move, and it also liberates his pawn in the center. JYNXZI gives a check. The king goes to g6. And by the way, JYNXZI grabs this pawn. He sees that there's a free pawn here, and he's actually just much better here. And the next sequence of moves is so unbelievably impressive for a 378 rated player. The thing is, I'm going to have beginners watch this video that are rated like 0 to 600. They will be impressed with this. They're actually going to learn some stuff. And then as you get stronger than that, you're going to sit there going, what? I mean, I would have seen that. I mean, why is he calling that impressive? That's so easy. Yeah, but what you don't understand is you're playing a game. I mean, you guys get nervous playing games on your phone, on your computer, whatever. These guys are playing in front of 100,000 people, all screaming at them that they're idiots, by the way. Because that's what live streaming is all about. I mean, you guys call me idiots when I'm on my live stream, and you could probably live 5 different lifetimes and combine your skill level over those 5 different lifetimes in chess and still lose to me in a game of chess. I'm telling you, you could live 500 years of life and still lose to me. And you're still calling me idiots. Imagine the pressure that these guys are under when people are watching their games, the computer, and calling them all sorts of names. And, you know, chess has that effect. Watch this sequence of moves. It looks like after bishop here, black has knight e3. Shockingly, knight e3 is a huge blunder, but it looks like a fork. I mean, it attacks 2 things at the same time. You move the rook, I take the bishop. You move the bishop, I take the rook. Do you have a move here that prevents me from winning anything? Yes. Danger levels. Danger levels, but you are also moving one of the pieces out of the way. Side note, which should white lose? White should lose the rook. If you didn't know that, now you do. White should absolutely lose the rook and get the knight back. That way you remove a piece from the board for black, and you are only down 2 points instead of being down 3 for nothing. This would be a terrible move, because you lose a full piece, and black maintains all the same pieces. Whereas, you know, if you play bishop b3, it's actually equal. The position is minus 0.2, but if you lost the bishop for free, it would have been minus 3. There you go, right? So JYNXZI here plays the best move, which is fantastic. He plays bishop check. He gets the bishop out of the way, hits the king, and now black can't take his rook. 380? He spotted this in like 12 seconds? Bro, I am impressed. Really. And after black blocks, he now notices he needs to move his rook. Now, he does make a mistake here, makes a very common beginner mistake. He moves a piece to attack the knight, but he doesn't think where the knight is going to go. This. I mean, this is something that all beginners blunder, and then they forget that I could actually take something. It would have been better to move and defend at the same time. And then to continue hammering away at this king, like let's say black goes here. Now with white, you kick out the knight. Let's say the knight goes here. Now here with white, I'm looking for still a rook infiltration. Or I'm going to throw pawns at the king. I see a king here. I know I need to open up the line of attack against the king somehow. G4, etc. Okay? So F5. JYNXZI plays rook e1. He loses this, but he goes rook e5. Now, rook e5's a very, very good move. Dude, he spots that the rook and the bishop coincide on the f5 pawn. What are we even looking at here? This is genius stuff from a 400. Really, like, I'm not embellishing. Again, the computer likes the 7th rank infiltration because the best way to put pressure on an opponent with the rook is on that second to last rank. That's generally where all the pawns are. That's where all the action is. And the computer wants the bishop to come back, and then rook g7 and rook g1. And this is the way it would swarm the black king, because the black king is deceptively weak. It looks like it's surrounded by a wall of pawns and it's kind of hanging around in its garden. Nah, the king's positioning is terrible. Okay, rook e5, X plays knight h4, beautiful retreating move. Excellent piece coordination. Now white has a problem. White has a problem here because there's no obvious way forward, and it's very easy to make a mistake here. It just is. I mean, there's no... So with white, I'm looking at, like, how do I make a move that isn't a blunder? The move rook g1 looks very natural because you put pressure on this pawn, but then you walk directly into this. That's exactly what happens. And yet, in kind of a miracle turn of events, if the knight were to take and fork these 2 pawns, white would then take not with the bishop. A lot of you would think, oh, I take its check. No, because then you have the same problem. you actually take with the rook. Now that rook is out of the way of the knight. And now anywhere the rook moves, it's a discovered attack against the king. So when the knight goes here, the computer finds this, attacking the rook. And even though black is up a rook right now, black's pieces are terrible. The quality of the pieces, the safety of the king, the rook will move over here, and then you will play rook f8 check, discovered attack, and win back the rook. And you will have a huge amount of interest here, because these pieces, they're miserable. They're not going anywhere. Not only that, you can then play rook e7 and maybe even checkmate. Look at this. So this is how you win a game of chess. Learn, understand what you are playing for, understand what's going on. You are trying to get to the king. You're trying to dominate the opponent with your piece activity, right? Knight h4 is played rook g1, X plays rook f8. Now we are in a very difficult position. JYNXZI has a +4 advantage against the 900 level player. This would be an unfathomable victory. But it's not simple. It's not simple to understand why. It's really not. White is completely winning here because of the weakness of the black king. Basically, there are moves in this position for white, like pawn to f4, where black will slowly not be able to defend their position. It's impossible to understand why it's +4. It's +4 because you simply bring the rook back. That's how much. It's almost a rook advantage for white. Black can now not take this pawn, right? Let's say black plays d5. The threat is simply pawn to f4 to attack this pawn, and it can't push because you take it, and then it's pinned. You say, okay, I get the idea is to go here, but what if black plays h6? You win the game here by simply taking, and attacking the pawn again. And black is defenseless against the infiltration. Black does not have a way to defend that pawn. Not with the knight, not with anybody. If you push it, I just take it. If you go here, I check you, and here, very calm, very patient, very demure, bishop f4. Double rook, completely shutting off the king, and that means that at any moment, I'm going to move my rook, and I'm just going to brutalize your position. Look, at a minimum, I can win your bishop, and at a maximum, I can mate you. It's a ladder mate. Very instructive, but very hard to understand at this level. Like, coordinating this attack, this wave of attack against the king, not possible. So what does JYNXZI do? He attacks the rook. I mean, like, honestly, I can't ask for a better move. X goes here. Now with white, I need him to keep attacking. Bishop e7. He spots it. X plays knight f3. It is so difficult to explain how clutch this move is from X. If X does not find this move, with 2 minutes on the clock, bro, he's down 1:40. JYNXZI's winning chances here, despite the rating imbalance, are like 30 to 40%, which for a matchup of this separation of rating, honestly crazy. But X pulls it off. X saw that if he moves the rook here, check is coming. And I mean, this is really bad. White is getting into the position. So he's like, yo, my rook is hanging. Now his rooks are hanging. His rooks are both under attack. But JYNXZI is still winning. JYNXZI must have gotten hit with this move. And psychologically, when you're outrated by 500 points, you immediately assume like, oh, I blundered. He gets hit with knight takes f3. Now, the best move for white is to just take the rook. I mean, the guy also has to take your rook, right? He's going to take your rook somehow. If he takes your bishop, this is a fork. Defended, and then you lose. And JYNXZI's just up a rook. So had he taken, and then X would have taken one of these pieces like knight g1, here you play rook f5, and you are winning. You're winning because you defend your bishop. And then you threaten a discovered attack. So black plays d6, you play rook f1. If the king comes here, you take with check. Like, you clean up. Oh my goodness, I can't believe how close this is, but it's very hard to win this as a 380. There's too many tactics. JYNXZI goes here, and he hangs his rook. And now he hangs his rook to the following sequence. He thought, this is what's called a capture chain. And it's so hard to, I mean, again, like, X thought for 20 seconds and locked in with this move, you know, ignoring the threat on the rook because he saw that and then seeing this instead. Such a clutch move from him. And now both rooks are hanging to the knight. This is called a capture chain. He takes my rook. Look, he takes my rook. I take him. He takes, and then I take. Simple, right? So you take the rook, obviously. No. Because he takes my rook. I take his rook. Now the knight takes the bishop with a check. So before he takes the bishop, the knight goes here. And that's branches. That's a logic. That's a calculation branch. That's a skill you develop as you get better at chess. If this, then this. If this, then this. But that doesn't mean that at the end of this first branch of movement, this thinking, you play that move. There has to be alternatives. And that's exactly what X spots. He takes the rook, and then he takes the bishop with a check in 4 seconds. And JYNXZI here is rattled. He doesn't even take back. But now he does. And regardless, now black is just up a bishop. But the problem is black is also up pawns. Black was up pawns, but his king was weak, and he was under pressure. But JYNXZI doesn't resign. I mean, black only has a minute and 39 seconds. It's actually impressive here, how you win with this position. So X goes here. He's looking at bishop a6 check, but the king and the rook on the same line. JYNXZI blocks it. Dude, this is really high-level stuff. Now we have a4. Now, X pushes this pawn. I mean, he's just trying to bring down the pawns. Very instructive. How do you win this position with a minute and 30 seconds on the clock? JYNXZI with black with a minute 29 would not be able to win this against XQC if the colors were flipped. Because the endgame technique has to be there. Maybe he could, but you got to remember, it's got to become automatic. And when you're 378, it's not automatic. It's not automatic. The automatic thing here is push these pawns. Win one of these pawns, bring in the rook. You have to make a queen here. You got to make a queen. G4, King G5, F4, F3. Look at this machine-like precision from XQC. Now he's probably gonna check him. Okay, he brings the bishop back. I don't love this move. Now he's gonna bring his king in. Wrong way. I would have brought it forward. And also, yo, you gotta use your rook. Like, here, the rook needs to come help. Fine. And by the way, it's very easy to lose here by accident. Like, you could accidentally get mated somewhere in the corner. Now he plays it. And now white is lost because you're just gonna bring in the rook. Okay, rook e4 I wouldn't have played. I think you need to put the foot on the neck, defended by the pawn, and like totally shutting down the white position, rook on the second rank. But I get it. He wins the pawn, and he wins that pawn, and now he's going to give a check, and now white's in a lot of trouble because look at this fantastic technique. Look how fast he did that. Look at 30 seconds he spent to get to this completely dominant position. Excellent technique from the 900 rated veteran. And now if you go here, I check you, so you got to run forward. JYNXZI does it just to see the instinct that is the right move is correct. By the way, the time is nearly even. Excellent from XQC. Of course, here, give a check, take this pawn. Taking this pawn's the cleanest. He just decides to push another pawn. Look how fast he's going. B4, B3. This is a thing that even advanced players do. They kind of get like stuck. So now he's stuck. But he has rook a1. Very nice move. Defended by that pawn. But he spots this move, deflecting the king away. And then, even this deep in the game, he blunders his rook. XQC hangs his rook. So here, if white had played takes, and taken the rook, there is a chance you make a comeback here with white. The problem is there's too many pawns. Even though black can just go here, and after this, black still wins. But even if you blunder that pawn and you play like h4, even this position is completely winning for black. What's insane is even this position is completely winning for black because the two pawns are just too strong. You play king g2, and you cannot stop two passed pawns. Just, you could lose your bishop, your pawn, everything. And X actually loses his rook, but the pawns are too strong. He managed, and he even loses the bishop. He loses a bishop with a check, 30 seconds on the clock, but now he can't stop the pawns. And great move from JYNXZI looking to get a pawn back, but now this pawn is going to queen. Nope, he doesn't queen that pawn, but now this pawn's going to, that pawn's going to queen. And yeah, now it's just over. But, yo, X mates him with 14 seconds remaining. JYNXZI took 9 minutes and 45 seconds off of the clock of a 900 rated player. XQC has thousands of games of experience. He's played in PogChamps. He's also an elite gamer. All right? Like, these people have serious competitive experience. This is a fantastic game. If I had any student rated 378, this might be the greatest 378 game ever played against the 900. I'm not glazing, as the kids say. This was an excellent game. And I think if you review the game, if you actually run game review, which I'm doing right now before I send it off, yeah, like it was 73 to 80%. It was excellently played. Game review thinks white is 1100. And game review thinks black is 1300. I mean, folks, this was a really good game. Okay, white blundered a pawn in the opening, but then, I mean, the complexity of having to navigate this attack against the king is outstanding. 2 weeks ago, JYNXZI was losing all his pieces in a game. Now, the thing is, you will stay at 380 if games you play like that are rare. That's the truth. If you play games like this, and then the next game you lose in 5 moves, you're going to stay at the level you are. It's about making games like this a little more consistent. So if you play really good games, remember, a chess rating in ELO, it's a range of skill. So if you're 600, it means you play between 500 and 700. Some people have a much bigger variance. Some people play games 300 points lower than their level and 300 points above. Their variance can vary, their variance can spread very far. That's the way it works. So you need 1 or 2 or 3 more games out of 10 to look like that. And then you might have a couple games, you lose your queen, you get mated, you have a horrible streak, you tilt, you lose a bunch of rating. You're going to get red hot, you're going to win like 10 games in a row. That was one of the most impressive games I've ever seen a sub 400 level player play. I'm super proud. So if you're watching this and you're a fan of either JYNXZI or XQC, both of them made me proud, but especially the guy who like 2 weeks ago was playing chess that was completely nonsensical. That's all I have for you today. Hopefully you learned something from this game. Very instructive game. Yeah, you know what to do. Get out of here.